Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Date today is the 9th of April, year of our Lord 2024. Welcome to yet another edition of The Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle, a.k.a. Motown Noah. Got a weird show for you guys today. Probably going to be pretty scatterbrained. Have had a pretty jam-packed weekend. Jacob, a.k.a. Rusty Buckets, and his producer extraordinaire, Rudy St. Clair, have been in town, have been in Chicago, so I've been acting as sort of a travel liaison for them. We've been out and about, hitting the town over the weekend. It's been a lot. It's been very physically taxing. I'm very tired. But I want to talk about some stuff that we were able to do this weekend because there is some historical precedence and significance to it. But before we jump into all that, I want to throw something out there. Well, two things, actually. One, I otherwise probably would have forgotten to mention this if my genius brain was not like, wait, Nick, at the 11th hour. Shit! Fuck! You're going to forget to say this! I'm not going to forget to say this. Spotify listeners, 2 episodes ago, we had like an astronomical spike in listenership. It was truly an anomaly for this show. I'm only saying this just to say if there are some new ears out there, whether it be on Spotify or on YouTube, who have recently checked into the show, I just want to welcome you. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. I have no idea how so many people on one random episode were able to listen. I was like really trying. I was like, what did I talk about in that episode? I was like, oh, I did a little spiel on the Baltimore Bridge. I was like, maybe it just got plastered on some like right-wing extremist like message board, and people are like, we got to check out, what does this guy know? Like, what does he guys? Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, thinking that something that I could say would end up on a right-wing extremist like 4chan thread. But regardless, thank you very much for listening to the show, and I just wanted to extend some gratitude for that. Second thing that I want to mention here, I woke up to some pretty shocking news. Some of you may have seen this last night when it broke. John Calipari is now the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks men's team. What? Huh? It's rare these days that in college basketball with the coaching carousel that, you wake up one day and you see something that makes you go, what? You're like, huh? Well, that's this here. Not a ton of information is out about it. I tell you what, though, the second that Kentucky, even if he tried to go back on this, I mean, maybe this point isn't even worth making. As soon as if you're the head coach of Kentucky basketball, the second you talk to somebody else, it's over for you. So I'm assuming he knew that going into this. But I want to talk a little bit about the unparalleled sort of, how do I want to articulate this? The unparalleled dynamic of player that John Calipari has helped produce while he's been at Kentucky. Let's rattle off a few names here. Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, John Wall, Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, De'Aaron Fox, DeMarcus Cousins are just a few of the NBA players that he has helped produce at Kentucky. You don't see this. You don't see this historically. You just really don't in the future, especially with how college basketball is going to be structured moving forward. Who knows what's going to happen to the NCAA as a whole? Because at some point, if this happens in the future, you're as of right now led to imagine that it'll be in some way tied to the NIL. And there's a little bit of it. Although, well, here's the thing. This is the reason why Calipari has had all of these players in the past, was because even though there wasn't a real precedent for paying your players, John Calipari was getting his motherfucking players paid, capital P, which is great. We can look back on it now, 10, 15 years ago. These kids would have been vilified if we found out that they took like a Twix, a Kit Kat from a donor. They would have been suspended for like an entire season, and there would have been 15 segments about how corrupt they are as a 17-year-old. You're like, what the fuck? It's a Twix. It's a Milky Way. Who cares? And now they're like, here's 6 Hellcats. And everybody's like, oh my God, so brave. Whatever. All right. I'm acting like I'm mad about the kids getting paid. I'm not mad about it at all. It's a good thing. And by the way, all the players I just listed there didn't even mention Bam. Bam Adebayo. He's part of that, right? Not even mentioning all the players that like didn't really end up working in the NBA, but like also kind of did a little bit. Think about like Willie Trill, Cauley Stein. Think about like Scal Labissiere. Think about the Harrison twins, right? We could do this for a while. What John Calipari has meant to the game of basketball, I think kind of transcends time in some way, and I think it transcends what we've ever seen from a collegiate coach, the powerhouse that he was able to, despite not really winning that many championships. I can name all those players that I want. But the truth and reality is, especially in recent years, that hasn't translated to a ton. Most of these kids probably wouldn't trade their Wildcat days for anything. Again, A, because it comes with a lot of status, a lot of notoriety. B, it probably came with a lot of money. And see, the same way that motherfuckers who went to Alabama, like you talk about Derrick Henry, he's like, oh, we weren't getting paid. Somebody was. Somebody was. And if somebody was, it was probably you. It's okay to admit it now. They're not going to retroactively come after you. Like, it's okay. Whatever. So John Calipari out of Kentucky. Wow. This is how it happened. This is really how it happened. He also stayed in conference. This is the other part of this. Although, does Arkansas basketball feel like one of those schools that, with all this conference realignment, one day they're just going to be like, yeah, we're just going to like go to the Sun Belt. We got no skin in the game here. They're not going to. But it seems like something they could do. Arkansas basketball, off the top of my head. Who do I got? Pat Bev technically went there, didn't he? Bobby Portis went there, didn't he? There's got to be one more. There's got to be... Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe went to Arkansas, right? Boom. There's 3. Arkansas basketball, there are some decent products out of there. Another thing that I saw this weekend that I wanted to talk a little bit about. Caitlin Clark did not do it. She lost the natty against South Carolina. We were only able to catch the second half of this game. We had gone to the Cubs-Dodgers game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we came back early because it was a rain delay. It lasted 3 hours. It was too cold. The weather sucked. So we just came home and we're like, oh, well, Iowa's playing. Let's turn on this second half. Boom. So we get to jump into the game right as the emotions and like this moment is starting to boil over. Kind of, get into it with the crowd a little bit. And then boom, it's the fourth quarter. We're here. Great. Love it. I love a spectacle. I love a precedent. And that's what this game felt like. It felt like a damn spectacle. Here's what I loved about it. Here's what we could not get enough of while we were sitting in this hotel room watching it. Caitlin Clark was like, if I'm going out and this is how it happens, I'm fucking doing it on my terms. We're down 7 with 2.5 minutes left. You bet your fucking ass I am crossing half court 5 seconds into the shot clock and putting up a 30-foot shot. I'm just doing it. We need a bucket in a big way. Dog, South Carolina had the paint on lock. There was no, that woman that they had, what is her name? It sucks. I cannot remember her name, and I'm not going to be able to look it up fast enough. The woman who had like the red or the pink hair, I couldn't tell which one it was. Oh my God, defensive anchor, literally a brick wall. Holy shit. South Carolina was so good. And they were putting up like voodoo shit for 8 minutes. Everything was going down. Dog, it was over. There are levels to this. There are levels to this. Caitlin Clark is a spectacular individual. South Carolina was an immaculate team. Oh, my God. By far, the most interesting thing to me about watching Caitlin Clark is that she does everything. Dog, she even does the inbound pass. Like, she'll do, like, an out-of-bounds timeout. She's inbounding the ball. She's, like, never the one who's, like, running around off screens and shit. She's like, no, put the ball in my hands. I will make the right play. Oh, my God. And it wasn't even just her crossing half court and putting up a 30-foot shot 5 seconds into the shot clock. It was like, dude, no matter what she wanted to do, she was just, everybody get the fuck out of the way. Give Caitlin the ball. And most of it didn't go in the end. Iowa didn't score in the last, like, 4.5 minutes of the game. Ended up kind of being a bummer. Because there was a little bit of you that was like, I want this to happen so bad. I want this to happen so bad. But it just couldn't happen. It just couldn't happen. But what is this? Everybody wants to talk about right now. What does this mean for women's basketball moving forward? What is this? That's a good question to be asking. And honestly, I think even, 5 years ago, imagine that we would be asking that today, that people would actually, with all due respect, care. That's pretty cool in and of itself that people are even remotely interested in what's going on. Was that report of Haley Van Lith transferring to South Carolina real? I really hope that wasn't real because that's fucking weird if that's real. Doesn't work at Louisville. You're like, LSU, the team who just won the Natty. And if this isn't true, then disregard all of it. Maybe I got, and this was a shit post or something. Maybe I'll just stop talking about it because it doesn't matter. But if that does end up happening, that sucks. That's bullshit. Like, go somewhere else. Don't go to fucking South Carolina. That sucks. But it's exciting. And it did feel like a moment that a lot of people cared about. The game just happened yesterday. The ratings aren't out yet as of this recording. But I hope they were huge. Ratings for that Iowa-UConn game and the Iowa-LSU game were both astronomical. I think it was the Iowa-LSU game that got more viewers concurrently than the NBA Finals did from a season ago. Whoa. You want to talk about historical precedents? That's not nothing. That's not nothing. And we talked a little bit about the women's game in the previous episode, so I just don't want to regurgitate a bunch of the points that I had already made. So So if you're more interested in, maybe a slightly deeper, nuanced conversation than what I just had, you can go ahead and check that out. I wanted to talk a little bit today about some shit going on in the NBA. It's the last week of the season, folks. We made it. Some of you out there are probably like, oh my God, finally. Oh my God, it's almost over. I.e. like me and other Piston fans, Wizard fans, Hornet fans. So where are Spurs fans at? How are my Spurs fans doing? Can I get a temperature check on you guys? Are you guys, not the whole, don't be sad that it's over. Smile because it happened on Victor Wembanyama's first season. Obviously, I'm not asking about him specifically. You're over the moon about Victor Wembanyama. That's not what I'm asking. Are you bummed that we're at the point of the season where now you're not going to get to see Victor Wembanyama until October? Or are you kind of like, thank God this horrible season is over? I think you almost imagine it's more of the former. And you're kind of like, damn, like I've had a lot of fun watching him. And even if the team has kind of stunk and there hasn't been a lot to root for, it's been really exciting to watch him because we've just never seen this before. And if you're a Spurs fan, you're hanging your hat on like, dog, I'm just sitting back and enjoying this summer. That's really all I'm doing. I got to throw this out there, Spurs fans. I'm talking to you guys. I wasn't originally going to bring this up. This is kind of a half-baked take. I was waiting until I had more of it, but let's just throw it out there. We're talking a lot about what's going to happen this summer. You try to predict some of the players that are going to be on the trade block. And as it pertains to the Spurs, our brains have just been like Trae Young. We just flipped the switch to Trae Young mode. And I think a lot of us are, I don't want to call it a foregone conclusion, but there's a very good chance that they pursue that. The Spurs are like, can we get a price check on Trae Young on aisle 11? Like, what is that going to look like? What is that going to cost if we want him? What do you need, Atlanta? Don't be shocked when that report comes out that they're making some phone calls, which isn't news. The Spurs making a phone call and like showing interest when that report comes out, don't get tricked. That's not news. Really? The Spurs are interested in one of the best point guards in the NBA? Every team would be interested in a guy like Trae Young. Don't trick yourself. That's not news. Making a phone call, also not news. That's just a general manager doing their due diligence. Okay? There are levels to this shit, and that's kind of like an entry-level thing. That's a ground floor thing. Showing interest and making phone calls is just kind of part of the job. But don't be surprised when you do start to see that ball rolling. I'm bringing this up just to say, are we thinking too hard about this? Are we not thinking hard enough, rather? Trae Young, I'd love it. I'd like it. I'd think it would make sense, depending on what the price is. This Donovan Mitchell thing in Cleveland is kind of weird. It's a little weird. It's a little weird that I don't understand the nuances of why Donovan Mitchell doesn't want to be in Cleveland. Is it just as simple as like, hey, he got traded out of Utah and Cleveland wasn't really one of the teams that he wanted to go to? Because it can't be a team personnel thing, both in his teammates and like the dudes who are on the bench. It just can't be that. It could be. I would just be surprised if that's what it was. They fielded a very competitive team around him. What's the problem here? Bickerstaff is a well-liked coach. Is it as simple as like geographically it's just not where he wants to be and he wants to like go to the Knicks? So now I'm thinking to myself, so what is that going to look like then? Because if the Cavs are like, hey, we don't think we're going to be able to sign him long-term, the latest report sounds like that's what the case is. Okay. So are they going to do the thing where they like try to hold on to him for as long as they can to like squeeze as much value out as possible? Because as soon as this comes out that he's like not that interested in staying long term, that tanks his value. Because other teams know that, dog, if he doesn't want to even play for your team, we're not going to trade for him. We're going to wait you out and we'll just get him in free agency. Like whatever, it is what it is. Because whatever Cleveland's asking for, it's like, dog, you might not even get that. If we know he doesn't want to be there, teams aren't going to give you the king's ransom. You know what I mean? So I'm in my head and I'm like, who is it going to be? Who's it going to be? If it happens, is that the Knicks? Is that the Knicks music? Are they like, hey, this Randall thing, when it works, it's great. But like, hey, is that a contract you move? Do you throw in Dante DiVincenzo? Do you throw in a Miles McBride and stuff and capital? Is that what you want to do? And you put Donovan Mitchell next to Jalen Brunson and like, I don't know, like Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, maybe, but you'd also probably in some way have to kill some pretty crucial depth. And that's something that if I'm a Knicks fan, I feel comfortable with because of how Leon Rose has run this team. the shit that's on the margins for the Knicks has been arguably just as impactful as like the big shit. Like, landing Julius Randle a couple years ago and going and getting Jalen Brunson like 2 years ago. The shit on the margins, like the Hartensteins and the Miles McBrides and the Dante DiVincenzo of the world, have been just as impactful as those Knicks, as the big dudes for the Knicks. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I trust Leon Rose, even if it's a trade. Maybe I'm just talking myself in circles for something that's not going to happen. Especially because I brought this up just to say, what if he goes to the Spurs? Is that what the Spurs want to do with Victor Wembanyama? I didn't even start this fucking episode thinking I was going to do 5 minutes on, like, where is Donovan Mitchell going to go? But I've been chewing on it, man, because I think something weird might happen. The weird thing that could happen, honestly, is that he stays. Is that he's like, no, actually, I'm cool. I was like, making all this fuss, all these bells and whistles. And for what? Because I'm chilling. I signed a $190 million contract. I'm staying here in Cleveland, whatever he's going to be worth. Surely in the trade, they would have acquired his bird rights. So they could sign him to something bigger than that. I don't know what the market is for Donovan Mitchell. Is he a $200 million man? You can throw that around semi-liberally these days, so I don't... Probably, though, right? I don't know. I'm not the cap guy. I don't know. That would be interesting. Donovan Mitchell in San Antonio. Let's move on to something that we touched on a little bit in the previous episode. But I want to highlight it again here because, again, we are just a little, about a week, about 6-7 days left in the NBA season. We really are on the home stretch. So this is when you can start to look at the standings and you can start to say, okay, all right, what are we looking at here? And like I said, we did a little bit of this on Friday, but it's Monday. It's a new week. Got to get you guys up to date on all the latest and greatest happenings in the NBA. And the latest and greatest in the NBA seems to be that the play-in in the East is secured. Okay, so it's going to be Chicago and Atlanta at the 9-10 spot. You're like, okay, that's cool. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Philly and Miami in the other one. We'll see what happens with Indiana. We'll see what happens with Cleveland. There's some weird stuff that could still shake out. But right now, it's looking like it's going to be Philly and Miami. And here's the question. Here's what we all got to think about a little bit. Okay, so you're Miami, and you wait all year for this. You wait all season. As Josh Hart put it, if you're Jimmy Butler, you're just like doing side quests and shit all season, which is true. And then he gets into April and he's like, oh yeah, basketball. And he's a top 7 player in the world. And you're like, okay, all right. So what happens if Miami loses in the play-in? It's entirely conceivable that Philly wins the first game. Okay, Miami's still got another shot, like whatever. They just go on to play the winner of Chicago and Atlanta. I don't like either of those teams' chances, especially because the game would then be in Miami. No? Miami's probably going to win, whether it's Chicago or whether it's Atlanta. But here's the thing. Or, hell, they could beat Philly, too. What are we talking about? But if they lose to Philly, and then it's only one game. That's what makes March Madness so good, is it's one game. It's a neutral site. I get it. Whatever. But it's one game. All it takes is, 35 and 13 assists from Trae Young. Onyeka Okongwu will go and fucking berserk at the rim. I'm just saying. Anything can happen in one game. Vucevic decides, I'm going to hit my threes today, and the Bulls win. Does Miami go from bullshit for 6 months, and then the best team in the NBA for like 3 months in the playoffs when it matters most? Do they go from that to it flips a switch in Jimmy Butler's brain and we got to deal with their horseshit all season because they never want to be in that position again where they just kind of fuck around and then they end up in the play-in and then they're like, we got every team in the NBA exactly where we want them, doubting us. Do they cut that bullshit out and now we got to deal with it from October to June? I'm going to lose my fucking mind if that's what happens. So I think I need to root for Miami to get out of the play-in. Win it. Beat whoever you need to beat. I don't care. It's no skin off my nose. I don't give a shit. This will resolve itself. This issue, this Miami problem will resolve itself. Let them play Boston. It's okay. But if you're going to deal with another one of these like generational performances from three that you seem to get out of these Miami teams whenever they enter the playoffs in the last like 4 years, It's going to be interesting to see. And it's something that we have to think about. Something to put a pin in. Just trying to give you guys the storylines as we wind down the regular season. What's another one? Well, the Celtics have locked up the 1 seed. That's been over, right? But the 2 seed, still kind of fair game. It's supposed to be Milwaukee. We thought it was going to be Milwaukee. They've been on, holy shit, rub your eyes, record scratch, freeze frame. You're probably wondering how they got here type slide. It's because of Doc Rivers, by the way. And he's been a good soldier. He's been a good soldier, and he said the right shit after all these games. You lose to the Wiz, you lose to the Raptors, you lose to the Grizzlies. I think you're losing to everybody. Everybody. Like tailspin in Milwaukee. Doc Rivers goes out there every night. I don't know who it is. He's like, but it's not the players. Didn't he, like, throw the actual bus driver under the bus the other day? He's like, on road games, we're just not prepared. He's like, transportation and shit. Like, we suck. Like, what? Oh, okay. All right. This is why, man. They hired Doc. I recorded that video, and I titled it, "The Milwaukee Bucks have been eliminated from playoff contention in January." In January. If we could all telegraph this, how could John Horst not? How? If we all saw this coming, how could the people who actually have jobs to do this shit not see it coming? Fuck! Shit! How? And I'm devastated, man, because and it could happen, man. They could pull it together and it's whatever. But it's going to feel so bad if we finally have this. I say finally like we were ever expecting it to happen. We have this Dame trade and they just bullshit out of the playoffs in like the second round. Who would that even end up being too? What would they play? Like the winner of like the Knicks and the Cavs? That's a series. That is a change in the standings because it was originally, wow, there's some activity here. So the Magic, the 2 seed could easily be the Magic, the Knicks, or the Cavs. There's room technically for it to be the Pacers. I'm sure there's some tiebreaker. Maybe even with the Cavs there is too. We're getting down to it. Knicks, Cavs, what a series that would be. And you have the Magic and the Pacers playing. No. I'm not going to be there. Magic, Pacers, I'm not watching that. There's going to be a lot of basketball on. I'm respectfully, just not a Cole Anthony guy. I don't like the Wagners. Jalen Suggs, I'm take him or leave him. Paulo's good. I got no beef with Paulo. He's just good. But otherwise, Knicks, Cavs is it. That's the series. That's the series for me. Where are Cavs fans at right now? Are they feeling confident or are they feeling like it's over? Because Knicks fans, it just kind of depends on who you ask. We talked a little bit about them on Friday, and I think also the prior Monday as well, a week ago. I think we talked about them. The same way that I've kind of been on this, all right, Nick, no more Mavericks. You need to stop watching Dallas for a little bit because you're turning into a sicko. You can't like them this much. So I've been weaning myself off of Dallas until the playoff starts just so I relax a little bit and come down to earth. The same thing may need to be said about the Knicks just beat the Bucks. That's another one that I could have said that. That's another team I think I'm kind of I need to quit a little bit is the Knicks, especially the post Julius Randle injury Knicks, where it's they're navigating these open waters with nothing but friendship bracelets and good vibes. That's basically it. That's kind of just how they're going into the playoffs. And normally I would say that's cute, but is Sacramento not basically doing the same thing, but for some reason it's not sweet and cute? We're human resources. It's that meme, but with Sacramento, but it's the same shit with the Knicks. But for some reason I'm no, the Knicks are cute as fuck. But in the past, I'm the one who's been no, Sacramento is actually a team that everybody should watch. Pre-Beam days. Fuck the Beam. Not fuck the Beam. Nope, stop. Nope, that's not what I said. I was miscontextualized. That's not what I said. I did not say fuck the Beam. The Beam is cool. But I don't know why I don't care about them anymore. I think I just found a new toy. Once the Kings kind of... There's one it's a whole revolution happening in my brain. Circuits and shit. Neurons firing. My shit being rewired. I'm reconditioning myself. I'm rethinking Sixth Man of the Year. I'm getting all in my head about it. I'm why would it be Malik Monk? I'm like, why would it be Malik Monk? Well, it should, I think. My brain says Malik Monk for sixth man. My heart says Naz Reid. My heart really says Naz Reid. I talk about how I want to quit the Mavs. I'm the same guy who, over the span of the last 3 days, I've just changed my mind on MVP. Just changed my mind. I don't have that much to back it up. That's just the beautiful thing about being a human being. And I'm not saying this in like some people are allowed to. No, I'm just saying, sometimes, dude, you just wake up and your vibes are different. I think it's Luka. You guys remember like a month and a half ago, I'm sitting up here, I'm pounding my desk, being like, it's Jason Tatum for MVP. You guys are out of your fucking minds. I was like, you guys are stupid. It's Jason Tatum. Arbitrarily, you guys are stupid, not you who listens to this show. Anybody who doesn't. I was like, it's obviously Jason Tatum. And then I snapped out of it because Jaylen Brown was like, this is actually my team. I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, I'm watching more Nuggets games, and I'm like, okay, fine, it's Jokic. Especially when Candace Parker on Inside the NBA is asking, and we talked about it on the show, but she's talking about if this was the first year that Jokic was performing at the level that he's performing at, is he the MVP? And I said unequivocally the answer to that question is yes, therefore, Jokic is the MVP. And then I said, not so fast, my friends. This was this weekend. This is the most recent revelation. My brain was like, no. I reject that. I reject that because I do, and because I can look at like on-off numbers all I want, but you know what happens when I watch the games? Dog, like Luka is the ultimate stabilizer for that team. I think he just is. You know, a guy who's leading the league in points, a guy who is top 15 in rebounds and is the only is the only non-center in the top 15 of rebounds. And he's like second in assists, shooting like 48% from the field. Only player, he's on pace to end the season averaging 33, 8, and 8. No player in the history of the NBA has ever averaged 33, 8, and 8 exactly before. Not putting too much stock in that one. I'm not saying anything really, kind of just saying it. It's like, the first player to ever average like 25, 14, and 6.5. That's not a real, that's not real. It's still interesting, but that doesn't mean it's a real thing. And I just feel it. And for the SGA heads out there, here's what I'll say to you. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm telling you what the voters are going to tell you. Do it again. Do it next year. Because historically, they are apprehensive about giving the MVP to a guy who's done it once. And Thunder fans are going to tell you, you're casual as fuck because he's been doing this for like 3 years now. This is just who he is. Sure. Has he been doing it on a winning team? This year he is. Right? If Shea does this again next year, I think it's going to be open and shut. And I think he will get it. But that's just the way that it is. People aren't that hip to Oklahoma City yet. Doesn't matter how high in the standings are that they are. And we'll talk about the West standings here in just a second. I think we've been seeing this out of Luka for a few years now. And, dog, he still might not get his first. Do you know what I mean? And the argument there would be, well, it's because the Mavericks. Well, no, haven't they had a season or two where they were like, what's the highest that they've finished as a seed? With Luka would be an interest, fourth, third. They haven't gotten that high. I don't know the answer to that question. A Mavs fan will let us know below. Let me rephrase the question, or restate it rather. What is the highest seed that the Mavericks have finished with Luka? Maybe we'll find an answer in there. I just don't think it's going to be Shea this year. I think the zeitgeist has completely stopped talking about him in the same breath as the MVP. But what if they give him first team All-NBA? How will that make you feel? That'll make you feel better. You probably give Brunson second team, you think? Let's look at the Western Conference standings because we're looking at a showdown, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like Clippers-Mavericks is going to happen. Looks like that's going to happen. Mavericks are basically locked in at 5. Suns can't really catch them 2 games back, plus the Mavs on a tiebreaker over them. Clippers very comfortably in 4th, not going to move up because the 1 through 3, Minnesota at 1, Denver at 2. I guess technically they're tied for number 1 right now. And you have Oklahoma City at 3. Oh, they're all separated by a game. So the number 1 seed, I've been saying, man, is like kind of the... It almost feels like the seed. It's not even really what we're paying attention to. Is like who's going to end up with the 1 seed in the West, which is interesting because that feels like it matters a lot. because it feels like having home court over, if you're Minnesota, having home court over a team like Denver, or having home court over a team like Oklahoma City, or, any version of that with any of the teams rearranged, feels like it would matter a lot. But looks like we're going to get Clippers Mavericks again, which is incredibly exciting. The Rockets have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. God is good. And then after that, it's like, okay, so the Warriors and the Lakers, that's just probably going to be the play-in. The Kings could slip a little bit. The Pels could slip a little bit. Again, maybe a tiebreaker or two in there that I don't know about. But I'm just excited. And another thing we talked about was how much there's still left to play for a lot of these teams. And, even going into this final week, I'm looking at all the, you look at everything I just read. It's like how much there's every night, how much consequence is involved in some of these games. I just think is really, really exciting. But then I'm just getting a little nervous. Now that we're getting closer to the lottery. I'm really going to have to face the music. Let's do a quick little Tankathon spin. Is that good content? I'll talk myself through it while I pull it up. Just getting nervous because, the Pistons, for all intents and purposes, as it stands, do possess the worst record in the NBA, which means that while they do not have the highest odds to get the number one pick, those odds are tied with, how does this work? So we in Washington have the same odds to get the first pick, followed by Charlotte, followed by San Antonio. Isn't it like the top 4 teams all have the same odds to get the first pick? I thought that's how it worked. Did they change that? Very, very all over the place and scatterbrained right now. But I'm just worried. Let's do a quick sim of the lottery. 1 sim, Pistons fall to 3. Memphis jumps 6 spots and gets the first pick. Portland jumps 3 and gets the second pick. Spurs stay at 4. Wizards fall to 5. That'd be funny. Because it's got to be one of us, right? It's Detroit or Washington. One of us is getting screwed. And is this the... James Edwards III comes out with an article, like literally this morning. Folks, we've been talking about it on the show. Trying to tell you. Like the digital fucking Paul Revere. Trying to tell you guys. They don't want Ivy. They don't want him. They don't. They don't want his ass. I'm telling you. In James' story, he's like, maybe the Cade Ivy thing works. Sounds like the front office doesn't think it works. Okay? It's going to suck to see it happen for Ivy somewhere else. I'm just telling you that. It's going to suck. Pistons fans, it's not going to feel good. It's not. The same way for like that pocket of Bears fans out there, it's going to hurt like a motherfucker if it works for Justin Fields in Pittsburgh or anywhere else. It's going to suck a lot. Right? Then you're going to look back on all the ways that you failed him. And you're going to look back on all the ways that, you could have done things differently. We're going to do that with Jaden Ivey. It's going to happen. Because when it happens for him, it's not going to be here. There's just no fucking way. God forbid we get a good pick. You can tell me it's a weak draft class. There's going to be a guy or two that teams want. And if you're lucky enough to hold the cards and you're picking in that range or at that spot that guy's projected to go, I mean, we're off to the races. You attach a guy like Jaden Ivey to that, who knows what that can get you. No one is safe. It's just Cade. It is just him. Can we get maybe a health update on Asar? Blood clot was the last thing we heard, and mainly been crickets since then. Hopefully this isn't... I remember when that happened to Chris Bosh. Wasn't he supposed to sign a contract in Houston, and then at the 11th hour he he's like, I'm not signing this, and then he went back to Miami, and then he was like, I actually have blood clots and I'm never playing basketball again. And it was just over. It's just over for Chris Bosh. And you were like, I didn't even at the time, I was like, I don't know, like 15, 16 years old. I had no idea it was that serious. So whenever I hear blood clots, I just immediately think, so this is very bad. This is not, which I know blood clots are not a good thing. I'm just saying in terms of his playing career. So like, ugh. So I'd love a health update. Sure, he has his right to medical privacy. I'm not saying I need them tomorrow, but what's going on there? Alrighty, folks. let's move on. Big weekend. I was talking about historical precedents. Folks, I got to tell you something. On Friday, we went to the Bulls-Knicks game. The last time I went to United Center was Lob City. That's how long it's been since I had been to a Bulls game. It wasn't even just Lob City. Chance 3 had just come out, and he had just gotten out. Yeah, right? I'm really dating it. And I say that like somebody was in the fucking room. The fuck was that? I was just doing like crowd work through a screen. What the fuck was that? Chance 3 had just come out, Grammy nominated. He was there. It was a Friday night. You know, the Lob City's in town. Everybody, Scottie Pippen was there. Motherfuckers were going crazy seeing Chance. Even I was. I was like, what? You just see the big 3 hat. You're like, whoa. That was the last time I was there. Dog, it wasn't even the Clippers that were crazy. You talk about the Bulls. They had D. Wade. They had Rondo. They had, like, Paul Zipser. You know what I mean? Like, this was a squad that they had in Chicago. But that was cool, man. It was cool to get to go back there. I don't give a shit about that arena at all. I think it is painfully average. I mean, it's been around for a decent while now, so I guess, it makes sense that it's not the glitz and glam that you'll see from some of these modern stadiums. But overall, it's cool. I love to talk about historical precedents, and then I walk into a historical building, and I'm like, it kind of fucking sucks in here. Yeah, it's fine. It's a cool stadium. I mean, there are statues and shit. Obviously, it's cool. I was just there to see Jalen Brunson. We were enamored watching Dante DiVincenzo just warming up. I was like, I get that this dude is an NBA player, and I get that, like, this, yes, they can make open shots, like, this is what they do. But it felt weird. Like, it felt different watching Dante DiVincenzo just connect on as many shots as he was connecting on. Just doing the same, like, it's just repetition. It's just repetition. Like, the same movement every single time. You get, like, 10 makes, you move to a different spot, you do a different rhythm. Like, it was mesmerizing. Dante DiVincenzo, I love you. I fucking love you. Oh, my God. And then I got to see the man of the hour. Too sweet to be sour. Jalen Brunson. There he was in all his glory. I was pissed watching this game. Not going to do a whole, like, recap of it because it was Bulls Knicks. Who cares? But it was the second night of a back-to-back. OG back in the lineup. What a treat that was. You just show up and they're like, hey, OG Anunoby's just back from injury. You're like, oh shit. Whoa. Cool. So got to see him. Didn't do anything until the last 4 minutes of the game, and then was like, I'm gonna try hard. And then he tried his best. But it wasn't enough because the Knicks stunk for 45 minutes. I was so angry. It ruined my experience. Also, because there was a man and a woman sitting next to me, and it was one of those conversations that I was like, huh? I was like, what? And it was taking me out of the game because I just needed to ease. I was like, what are they talking about? And it was I couldn't figure out what their relationship was. They were in their later 50s, mid to late 50s, both of them were. I couldn't tell if they were not in this way. I couldn't tell if they were on a first date or if they were cousins or siblings, just based on what the conversation was, not on what they were doing physically. Because he was verbally berating her. She I guess had a nervous tick or something where she would I don't know, kind of pick at her fingers. You kind of dig into your, whatever, we all do. We have something, some people bite their fingernails, shit like that. And she was doing it, and he kept grabbing her fucking arms and being like, you're disgusting. Stop fucking doing this in public. You're disgusting. And she's just trying, she's drunk. Oh my God, this woman was fucked up. And then halftime rolls around, and he's just being an asshole the entire time, but also they're having normal conversations in between him being an asshole. It was weird. And the halftime show comes out, and they're doing wheelchair basketball, and I'm up there being like, that's a walk! Fuck! Sorry. It's not what I meant. But then I get distracted because I hear him say something. All I heard was trans, and I was like, oh my God. Am I about to hear one of those people in the wild? Am I about to hear somebody that you see them, you read what they say on the internet, and you're like, that's not a real person. That has to be a bot. I'm about to hear one of these people in real fucking life. All I really heard him say was, yeah, they know what they're doing. What? Please elaborate. What are they doing? And what do they know about what they're doing? The fuck? He's like, you're telling me they could just go down there and play in this game right now? I'm like, well, no, these people are in wheelchairs. Trans people, they don't transition into wheelchairs. They don't just wake up and they're like, I think I'm a disabled person. They're not like, I identify as a quadriplegic. Well, I guess to play wheelchair, but a paraplegic. The fuck? And this woman was doing everything she could to not engage. Like, she was clapping, being like, yes, just like at the game and just ignoring him, but he just wouldn't stop. And so I'm just like, this is the game now. Listening to them, this is the new Bulls Knicks game. This is just why I was put on this earth and in this seat right here so that I could hear this conversation. It was basically just all that for 48 minutes of game time. So then we left the Bulls game. That was it. Watching Jalen Brunson was cool. Mike Breen was there. Just getting to see Mike Breen was like, whoa, holy shit, Mike Breen. Also, getting to see Walt. His suits was cool. So I got to see Brunson. And then a couple days later, just as of yesterday, I got to see Shohei Ohtani. And I thought I was going to cry, to tell you the truth. And it was a little weird. There was this kind of like a, look, I'm an emotional guy, and I wear that on my sleeve, right? I'm watching Shohei step up to the plate in Wrigley Field. And I just am like, almost like breathless. Like, I'm like, I can't, like, he's right in front of me. An athlete unlike anything that we've seen, not just in this sport, but in all of them. And the precedent that he sets just by being there. People are going to go to Cubs games no matter who they're playing. It's a cultural experience for people, truthfully, to go to Wrigley Field. And the history that comes with that, honestly, and just that stadium and that team, that franchise. People come to Chicago just to see the Cubs. That will always be true. But it's like when, Luka or Jokic, it's when the stars go to the Garden. It's when they go to Staples. And having Shohei Ohtani in Wrigley Field is like well, now granted, it was the last game of the series and he had already hit a home run there. And like, yeah, sure, he had already played a few games. And the biggest moment was like it had already passed. But I've just never seen, including myself, by the way, I took my phone out and recorded the first at bat. I had to. I was like, if he does something and I didn't try, and I don't have my own version of it, it's going to suck. So the first at bat I recorded, and I'm like in between pitches, like kind of looking around and just seeing how many people had their goddamn phones out. Because this guy is just, he's can't miss, must see, man. And to be able to witness that, we only got to see 2 at bats. And the rain was so fucking bad. It was so cold that eventually they delay the game, and we're just like, it was like the 5th inning, and we're just like, let's just call it, man. Like, we just can't do this. It was so brutal. They didn't even pick up the game for like 3 more hours, dude, and so it was like, whatever. So, kind of bummed. I only got to see him strike out and then pop out, but I still got to see Shohei Ohtani and Jalen Brunson in the same weekend, which is pretty cool, and I don't think that's nothing. Additionally, another thing that we did, and I do want to highlight this because it feels quintessential to the show that I would mention something like this. Jacob, a.k.a. Rusty Buckets, wanted to get a new phone, so we went to the Apple store. We didn't just go to any old Apple store, though. We went to the one downtown on Michigan Avenue, the one that's right on the river. Folks, those of you out there who, I know there are a handful of you who live here in Chicago, and I'm sure an equal amount of you have visited Chicago before. There is a huge Apple store right next to the Chicago River. It's right on the river. It's a big glass building. You kind of can't miss it. And it's not just any old Apple store. It's not. When I tell you that it was truly the most like dystopian experience I've maybe ever had in my life, I was losing my fucking mind. We're standing, so you walk down, and they have what seems like at all times, or maybe it was just because it was a weekend, somebody running like a creative think tank at the front of this store. and they have this huge LED screen, and they got the nice Apple microphone headset where they got their hands free and they're able to walk around and talk, this headset. And you got all these nice lounge chairs around this, this creative think tank, this presentation that somebody's giving. That's connected to the retail space. So while they're talking about like focal lengths and like refresh rates and shit, simultaneously people are purchasing software and like iPhones and shit. And you're like, okay. And then 2 feet away from that are these Vision Pros. And right next to you are like 6 people doing like demos for the Vision Pro. So there's like all this tech shit happening around you, and then you just like look over and there are motherfuckers with the Vision Pro on like dragging and I'm like, what's going on? Where are we? And the motherfucker who was selling us the phone, oh my God, like literally like the most Apple dude ever. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, this new iPhone 15 is actually the first photo that can take 3-dimensional photos and 3-dimensional video. Wow. So what? And he's like, well, so when they dyed the river, he's like, I went outside and I snapped a 3D video, and that way when I got home, I could sync it up to my Vision Pro and I could look around at the photo. It was really cool. And then after that, I went to a laser show. I was like, really? The tech guy went to a fucking laser show? You take some goddamn MDMA while you were there? Guy? Buster? Pal? It's just weird to be in the presence of all of these like tech minds while there's a creative workshop happening, while there are with these, I don't know if I've done an efficient job, or rather a sufficient job explaining this to you guys, but it was a lot for me. I've gotten to see this city this weekend. I've lived here for like 5 years, give or take, in a way that I've never seen it. Like I basically just was a tourist with Jacob and Rudy this weekend, in a lot of ways. And I gotta tell you, this is the best city in the world. It's just the best fucking city in the world. It just is. Like, they've been here for 3 days. We've done, I think, a lot of stuff. We've got one more day in the can here. And I'm just like, dog, we haven't even done anything. There's so much more that we can do. Like, this is insane. It's just been a ton of fun. It's been exhausting. It's been exhausting. Went to the aquarium. It sucked. They were just under constant renovations, so I didn't really get to see anything there. It's been cool though, folks, and I think that's probably going to put a bow on this episode. Going to be a little bit shorter today, but hey, should I give you guys a baby update? This upcoming Wednesday will be 37 weeks. It sounds like they may try to induce her at 39. So we're getting there. So just as a reminder, we don't know yet. So it's just as a reminder, if there's a Monday or a Friday in the very, very, very near future that I do not upload a show, just know it's because we're having a baby. Or maybe he's already been born. Maybe I'll make like a community post or something. So that way, I won't make it too invasive in his life or his mother's. Maybe I'll do the thing where I make her get out of the bed and I lay in it like I just gave birth. How motherfuckers do that, huh? It's crazy. But if I don't have an episode out, it's because we're having a baby. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening to this on Spotify, be sure to rate 5 stars. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a like, subscribe. Nice little comment for the algorithm. Hope everybody has a fantastic week. And I will catch you guys
Computers now have
in the next one.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.